You know, when I heard you got the real Goob Yaluob to be part of this documentary, I thought, oh my God, really?
Goob is the Einstein of our generation, of Einstein's generation.
That man should come with a warning label. If you associate with him, your name is going to be in the headlines, whether you like it or not.
God is dead. Long live Goob.
I think we all have our stories. This is mine.
My pet, how I love her, my
Mother was way ahead of her time. She was the first female reporter for a major publication. She was a health reporter for the Daily Mail. Father was a geek of the carnival variety. None of my relatives on father's side cared much for show business. He came from a textile factory, but he was determined to make Yaluob the name on everyone's lips. My birthday was in May, which gave me more reason to look forward to the end of every school year. Mother and father found out pretty early on that the education system wasn't working for me. So, for my 9th birthday, father took me to the Hippodrome Traveling Circus, which he joined earlier that year. They were looking for a new attraction for the sideshow, and while I wasn't freakish enough to join that show, they let me in as a performer. And I played every part. I would walk on a tightrope carrying glass tumblers in both hands. I would ride a Model T around the Wheel of Death. They'd even make me wear this and pretend I was a lion cub. Eventually I got so shaggy I didn't even need to wear it. And that was all in just 6 months. It would have been longer, but my time was cut off by a great tragedy. In November, we went to Manchester. While we were there was a great explosion in a factory. The press counted 317 people that died. But at the time, they didn't count sideshow freaks as people. So the numbers probably much higher. Oh God, I really hate talking about this. I need to get some water. Father immediately took me home, told me about how dangerous everything is. It didn't last long. I was out of England before I could even process what happened. When all is said and done, it wasn't a hard move at all. The only thing I regret about leaving my country is that I forgot my mother tongue. The moment I got here, I was instantly Americanized. It was also an easy transition for my parents. Mother became the editor-in-chief for Time magazine, and father found this out the hard way, but no one in America had ever heard of a circus before. But we were in luck. The only place landlords would allow us to stay was Los Angeles. Father saw an opportunity to invest in motion pictures, and this was my ticket to stardom.
It's hard to imagine a Hollywood without Goob Yaluob. We certainly have him to thank for its embrace of child labor laws. It was when his film Algiers premiered that people were shocked to see a preteen play a professional crime lord and deliver all of his lines with such a straight face.
You were fond of Piero, weren't you?
Oh, I was. I am fond of him.
Well then, you don't want to leave before he gets back. You want to know why he's been detained, don't you?
She's in love with him, Charlie. Why, tonight when she couldn't pay her check, he was the one she thought of.
Well, it could have been you if you weren't so tongue-tied.
Oh, I know, but I never can think of the right words.
I could do it. You should let me tell her.
It became the basis of his routine. An adult trapped in a kid's body. It ended with that infamous outtake from Topper's Return. Joan Blondell's scream was a genuine reaction to Goob showing up on set with a full beard of pubescent acne. MGM had to remove Goob's character and rewrite the entire script. The chief, the studio chief, Sam Goldwyn, was furious, and he would have the final word with Goob.
It was awful. I couldn't bear to be rejected by the film industry. I was determined to stay, so I pleaded to Mr. Mayor, Mr. Goldwyn, and Mr. Metro to renew my contract. They wanted to ban me from their studio lots for life. We came to a compromise. I stayed in the film industry, but I was demoted to the regular gang of extras. When I joined these people, I felt my dignity collapse. I couldn't tell the difference between this crowd and Father's freak show. I knew I was above them, so I had to make a point about that.
Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by.
We were shooting Casablanca. It was Ingrid Bergman's first day on set, and they were going to shoot all her scenes with Bogey first. I went up to Michael Curtiz as soon as I saw him alone, and I suggested he change this one throwaway line in the script. What was originally a simple, "Here's to you," became,
"He's looking at you, kid."
But I didn't stop there.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? This is Orson Welles.
Orson Welles was shooting Citizen Kane, and every day before shooting, he'd tweak the script. But there was one fatal flaw. Kane's last word was originally wintergreen. So I sat outside his trailer and loudly read the names of all the Kentucky Derby winners. I put extra emphasis on the 1914 winner, Old Rosebud. 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 When he got on set, he inexplicably thought that Rosebud was a good name for a sled. But I didn't stop there. The special effects team on Jaws was ready to unveil their orca. They were really proud of their work, but I was just sitting there, and I told them, "It looks awful. Why isn't it a shark?" So they scrapped the old animatronic, built a new one, and the film was saved. After a while, the studios began taking notice, and they all wanted me as a script doctor. I managed to strike a deal with all 6 of the majors. The one condition on my contract was that all my contributions had to be a secret. They didn't want it getting out there that all the movies coming out of Hollywood were essentially copy edited by the same guy. I was going pretty steady as a script doctor. I got a few dozen scripts every month to review, and they always took my feedback seriously. But eventually the word got out there. I don't know how. I believe one of Paramount's communist screenwriters, but someone must have leaked my secret position to the Hollywood Reporter. Because when this got out, my house was swarming with crowds of losers who wanted to take my picture and learn everything about me. It didn't help that I was constantly getting called by Mother. She was disappointed that I never told the news to her before. Because of what I hid from her, the Hollywood Reporter beat time to the story of the year, which damaged Mother's credibility as a journalist and editor, which had been perfect up until that point. And Father, I bet he was in hot water as one of the 11 studio execs who oversaw my work. From that point, I had to cut them out of my life. I ignored all calls, skipped birthdays and family reunions, never found out if they kept their jobs. I don't even know if they're still alive. I spent the next period of my life trapped inside. I went on eating binges. One night, after a particularly bad bender, I woke up on the kitchen floor, surrounded by food waste. The first thing I saw was a can of Chef Boyardee ravioli. The chef on the can was staring at me. It was the first time I had made eye contact with anyone in 3 weeks. At first, I thought nothing of it, if not for something that happened later that day. I was walking down Sunset Boulevard in a haze. At this point, I was immune to nasty stares because I could barely see, except for chefs. All I could see was chefs. There were so many chefs, just like the one on the ravioli can, but there were just so many of them. I had a moment of self-realization after that day. It wasn't just Chef Boyardee who was making that food. There's so much food that you eat every day, and so much food in your kitchen, and it wasn't all made by one person. And I could be one of those people. So I started training. I wrote down all my recipes. I became one of the chefs I saw that day. My cookbooks would be displayed in bookstore windows everywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of the masters of American cuisine. He's been in the business for about 20 years now, and you can probably find his cookbooks in your local bookstore window. Please welcome Goob Yaluob.
My good friends from the CBN invited me to the 700 Club. I was the first celebrity chef featured on national television. Not many people remember that episode for the food. I mean, I couldn't even tell you myself what I cooked that day. But I made this one offhand comment during the show. This was a trick I learned as a trapeze artist in the circus.
Are you saying you were circumcised, son?
No, the circus?
Are you speaking in tongues?
Pat took me backstage and he said, Goob, what is this circus thing? Is it some British shadow government that I haven't heard of? And I said, it is British.
I heard him talk about this circus thing, and I thought to myself, what could be a better sacrament to our faith than this? I said, why don't we set up a circus, not just for Virginia or LA, but for the whole country?
And I said, yeah. We made a few nationwide tours as the world's first traveling circus in America. I was the ringleader of the show, and I incorporated all these kitchen-themed gimmicks, like juggling frying pans while they were still hot. Our third tour stopped in Minnesota, Northfield. 2 of the 5 sponsors from CBN died of exhaustion. The others fled with the rest of the money. We had no plan. I didn't know how to contact Pat. We were trapped. At the end of the day, there was no reason not to permanently stay in Northfield, and World's First became a staple of the city.
Spring is here, a suppering is here. Life is Skittles and life is beer. I think the loveliest time of the year is the spring. I do, don't you? Of course you do.
We can't tell you what's in the new Donny Arquette's mystery flavor yogurt, but we can tell you that it's full of the things that make you bug out.
Eventually, the Donny Arquette's Delicious Dietary Yogurt Company reached out to me because they saw the revenue that I was bringing to the city. Someone showed their board of directors that reel of me juggling those frying pans. They thought I would be great for their image, so they did what anyone with an MBA would do and promoted me to the position of CEO. As CEO, I could do anything I wanted, however I wanted. If Bobby from the processing sector complained that the pasteurizer wasn't operating, I could send Zachy from the board of directors to take care of it. It was like a funhouse for me. Until...
Employees of Donny Arquette's Breakfast Company have filed more than 140 complaints since current CEO Goob Yaluob took the reins last year. Many of these complaints compare Yaluob's leadership style to that of an organized crime boss. The Department of Justice says this footage comes from a Donnie's factory in Brainerd.
Whoa.
What the hell are you doing? Who are you?
I'm with the press.
Oh. Alright. Oh, yeah. Alright. I heard about this.
Yeah, we've gotten some reports about some weird activity.
It's a yogurt factory, but still, you like yogurt?
Sure.
What kind you like?
Coconut?
Our number one ingredient is quality.
Well, I hope mercury isn't part of that recipe.
You can say I had nothing to do with lacing the yogurt. That was all on Zachy, who's dead now.
And did you incite this killing?
Okay, one, it was accidental. Aren't you supposed to be defending me?
What the fuck? Is that a camera? Get out of here.
There's no precedent for a trial like this. I couldn't even talk in private to my client. Every station wanted round-the-clock coverage of it.
Good day, everyone. At this time, the court calls the State of Minnesota versus Goob Yaluob. Case number 02MN014. Defendant is charged with Subdivision 2 of conspiracy to commit crime under Chapter 609 of the Minnesota Criminal Code. Also, Subdivision 1 of racketeering under Chapter 609 of the Minnesota Criminal Code.
Not only that, but the defendant poisoned the yogurt with cinnabar. 5 people in Northville have been found dead from mercury poisoning, and each of them had recently eaten yogurt from Daddy.
Excuse me, what the hell did you just say?
Decorum, Mr. Yaluob.
Your Honor, may I address the defendants? I was saying that all the mercury poisoning victims had eaten Donnie Artek's delicious dietary yogurt, or Daddy for short.
That's what you call my company?
I'm still not completely sure why that word made him go berserk. But then it hit me. The prosecution is going to use this against us. And once they found out about his tics, they demonstrated.
Do you think Mr. Yaluob is unfit to run a company like Daddy?
Do you mind?
Mr. Yaluob, one more outbreak like that.
Everyone warned me that I was screwed because the state had the best legal team in the country. Well, if that was the case, they must have forgotten to show up because they didn't have any strategy. All they did was taunt him. And at some point I realized I don't have to do anything to defend this guy.
Court is back in session. I'd like to start by addressing the prosecution. I will issue a citation of contempt if Ms. Graham continues to refer to Mr. Yaluob's dairy farm by its acronym. From here on, order in my courtroom. Overruled. I have issued several citations for Mr. Yaluob already, and I'm doing this to prevent it from continuing. May we proceed?
I'd just like to say to my workers and the people who ate the yogurt that I am extremely, ginormously sorry. Copper testing wasn't widely practiced at the time, but it doesn't help to make excuses like that. I can't just shy away from things like this or run from them. I need to face them head on. We need more accountability in this world, and that starts with me. So they let me free, right? When I walk out, I get this letter from the city of Los Angeles. They were charging me for disorderly conduct.
Where were you on the morning of June 16, 1949?
In my yard in Beverly Hills.
And did you see Goob Yaluob that morning?
Yes.
And can you describe his behavior that morning?
Yes. He was limping down Sunset Boulevard wearing nothing but a Speedo and a bathrobe. And he took my golf cart. And I would have stopped him, but he reeked of spaghetti sauce.
And did you ever recover that golf cart?
Well, I couldn't. About 10 minutes after he left, I found it destroyed on the sidewalk a few blocks from my home. And it was just sitting there in front of a bookstore with a broken window.
My lawyer wasn't prepared to defend me here. In fact, he did nothing. In the end, they found me guilty, and they wanted me in the pen for this.
In 1934, the circus came to Manchester. A nearby factory burned down. The circus was no more. Goob Yaluob was set to perform that day. Instead, he found a calling for leadership, the kind of leadership that Northfield needs. Vote Goob for mayor, 1988.
People always ask me, why? Why did you decide to run? There was never really a moment for me. It was just a culmination of all the angst I had been feeling about the way we live. There was just so much excess.
Yeah, sure. Don't worry.
It was all this big spectacle, and I wanted no part in it. The place needed to be like the Northfield I knew.
Took it.
Yeah, so I was one of Yaluob's main staffers. Well, he had 100 of us working for him, so I probably only saw him once or twice throughout the whole campaign. He never had much of a coherent vision for Northfield. He always found some new social ill to go after. At first it was swat out corruption. Then it was wipe out inflation. Then a dog peed on his driveway, and he changed the campaign to God made grass for a reason. I'm surprised by how long it took him to make frivolous lawsuits a main issue.
I still felt a bit disgraced by the Donnie Arquette's delicious dietary yogurt scandal, so I ran on my experience as a ringleader.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
50 years ago, I stood in a circus just like this one. A lot has changed since then, but the joy I see in your faces was the same joy I felt all those years ago. When I started my term, I immediately faced a crisis. We owed hundreds of thousands of dollars to foreign powers, especially Italy. I don't know how it happened, but my goal was to ultimately get all this debt paid off. I tried everything. I even took my problems to the United Nations. I never tried to contact the perpetrator directly because I read this quote about never negotiating with terrorists.
So, as people may know, he didn't fix the crisis by the end of his term. But I stayed on board for a second run. There were a lot of episodes from the campaign trail, and there was one time, I don't know if I'm allowed to speak about the incident in its entirety, but after he washed his hands in a fountain, security dragged him off the scene.
My opponent couldn't think of a narrative to defeat me or a plan. As a last-ditch effort, I went to Italy, the Italian Parliament. I went there, I apologized for all the other stuff I said about the Catholics, and I left. I came to a deal, and we each had to do our part. And my part was raising taxes on Northfield. They hated it. The media called it the pizza tax. The decision didn't kill my chances of running for a third term, but I humbly decided to step down from the running. And that was it. I retired from the public eye. Fish. This is where my old traveling circus was. This place used to be so lively, so full of culture and celebration. Now I look like a clown among these people. They don't even know what a traveling circus is or what it stands for. So, you may be wondering, why? What do you have to say? What can your ramblings bring to the table? You're old. Shut up. And that's true. I'll be lucky if I have a few years left in me. And that's why I want to spend my last days making sure I leave something meaningful behind. Something that the younger generation can take with them. I've gone through a lot of changes in my life. But the one thing that stayed constant is my love for the circus. But these days, people can't get gainful employment in the circus, whether it's due to unions, regulations, or pernicious laws due to animal cruelty or child labor. But I know that deep down, we all still love the circus. So that's why I want you to go vote yes. And you may be wondering, is this a local thing? No! No matter what city, state, or country you live in, you're going to see Global Proposition 24P on the ballot whenever your next election is. So get out there. God made grass for a reason.